What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be doing something new, something fresh, something I haven't done for such a long time, and that is focusing on television content. So a lot of you might know back in the day I did a lot of reactions to stuff like Twin Peaks and Game of Thrones, and I did the odd discussion as well instead of reactions. And I mean, in this day and age I really don't have the time to watch and react to TV shows and get them uploaded fast enough. It's just not viable for me at this moment in time. So the next best thing I can do is to do sort of episode discussions, and that is what we are going to be doing today, because I've been wanting to get back into doing this, and there's no better way of doing it with a show like Better Call Saul. I've been absolutely loving the show. Honestly, to me, it is on par, if not better in some ways, than Breaking Bad. It's been progressively getting better for me as the show has got more focused on the sort of crime aspect of the show. So this one has been put together quite slapdash. This is me reacting off the cuff. I don't even have notes for this one. Next time, hopefully for the next episode, I will be more focused. I might have some more images to put up on the screen for you guys to relate to what I'm talking about like I used to do. I'm already a week behind, and I felt like if I don't get this done right now, I'm not going to do the series at all. So you've either got this version now and maybe more substantial reviews next week, or you'll get nothing. So hopefully you guys enjoy this content. Some of you guys who've been here for the TV content and just haven't seen any for a long time. So episode 8, Point and Shoot. First of all, I've got to say that the first half of the series was really cool, especially the finale. It goes without saying that I'm going to be talking about spoilers here. So if you haven't seen the first half of the series, tune out. So yeah, so the finale of the first half of the season ended with Howard, poor Howard, getting his brains blown out by Laylo Salamanca. Now, that episode was incredible. The whole sort of final scene gave me chills, and I've watched it multiple times, and it's just really well done the way they did the whole sort of candle flickering moment when they flickered twice. I'm not here to talk about the first half. I really enjoyed it, especially that episode and that really crazy cliffhanger. So we are back after maybe 4 or 5 weeks of waiting, and we have the episode Point and Shoot. So all of the episodes so far in this season have been 2 words that relate to something in the episode, and this one being Point and Shoot relates to what happens with Kim and Laylo and Jimmy. So we left off with what happens last time, where basically Laylo is after Jimmy and Kim for some reason, and we find out that he has a plan to send Jimmy to Gus's house, which he knows the address to, and basically to turn up at the door with a video camera, point and shoot, which means basically pointing the camera and shoot. So already we have a parallel between this and the finale of season 3 of Breaking Bad, where Jesse turns up at Gail's house. I believe it's Gail's. So that's one thing I do love about this show, is sort of all the different parallels of different scenes between the show and different seasons and different characters. So similar to that, there's a scene in here where Jimmy is actually tied to a chair. So Laylo leaves him in the chair and he's tied up. And I think at one point falls on his side in the chair, and he has the sort of gaping mouth. He has a bandage around his mouth, but he has the kind of gaping mouth look from the Ozymandias episode with Walter White doing the face after Hank is shot, and then same with the flashback to Gus when Gus's partner or friend is killed. So these parallels, I love to see them. The very first cold open of this episode, which is incredible. The cold opens in this show are so intriguing, and they keep you on like hook, line and sinker, and this one is no different. So we start with a car on the beach, and as the camera pans out, you got to commend the camera work in the show, because it's just incredible. So the camera pans out and we see like it's Howard's car with an Namaste license plate, and we see his wedding ring and his wallet on the dashboard, and it makes you feel so bad for that character. I mean, he's not perfect, he's not the perfect human, but you felt so bad for him throughout the last few seasons, where he was just getting constantly dogged by Jimmy and all these plots to try and destroy his career. And a lot of the time when you do get to see his character, he's doing good things for good people. I mean, he is the leader of a lawyer firm, so obviously he has a bit of a grey area of his moral compass, but he tries to do the good thing for people in this show, and especially for Jimmy, actually. And that whole thing is really sort of heartbreaking to watch, especially when you're seeing like this dude who's been struggling with his marriage and all these things going on in his life. He's going to therapy, and they just kind of fucking destroy his life. And just seeing his wedding ring and his stuff just left on the beach is just rough stuff. Jimmy as well in this one, surprisingly, he decides for Laylo's plot to send Kim to go and shoot someone instead of himself. Now, at first glance, this may feel like a selfish act of Jimmy. He doesn't want to be part of this, but obviously there's lots of layers to this scene in the dialogue and the acting, where you can see that he's making himself sound selfish and forcing her to do it because he doesn't want to do it, but essentially he wants her to just get away from Laylo and get out of the house. This is my interpretation of it anyway. He just wants her to be free and try and escape, and he's basically sacrificing himself for Kim in that point, and she knows it because the way she's looking at him. I mean, we don't know the full fruition of what may happen to these characters by the end of the season, but Kim must know what Jimmy's doing for her. She must know like the extents that he's going to basically save her life over his own. And I thought it was just a really interesting scene, especially because we know with Jimmy, the character, he can be quite unpredictable in his motives and his messages and what he's trying to convey. And I thought that was really interesting because honestly, it could have been either way. It could have been actually just trying to save his own back or saving him and sacrificing himself. But his character is so like morally off the scales, balance wise, that he could be possibly saving himself if this was his final moment that he thought he might be dying in. So you can never know, but I'm pretty sure it's the first option that I was talking about where he was sacrificing himself. Jimmy's look in this episode as well, man. This man has been through a disheveled time over the last couple of seasons with him being stuck out in the desert. And this one, I mean, he's tied to a chair, he's threatened to die, his partner is about to die potentially, and he's definitely got the whole sort of comb over look going in this one. He's starting to feel the stress and pressure. I think he's starting to get more like, well, what you see there, or what you see in the Breaking Bad show, where he's basically has a full-on comb over his head that he has really sort of balding hair. So the rest of this episode is essentially like a cat and mouse experience where Laylo is after Gus. Gus is trying not to die. He's trying to outsmart Laylo. Mike and his men are trying to track down Laylo, and Jimmy is tied to a chair. So, I mean, he is the main character of the show, but essentially he is just tied on the chair while everyone else in this episode goes out and does all the hard work. So, there's a bit of a bait and switch as well, which is one of the main scenes in this, is with Laylo Salamanca meeting up with Gus at the laboratory. Now, I can't quite remember how Gus may know that he's there or whether it's just a coincidence. I know he knows that the Salamanca's finding his lab is definitely a way to out him as a traitor. So there we get I think it's one of the best scenes in this episode, especially one of the best scenes for Gus that we've had in the show, actually, because he's been quite reserved compared to some of his monologues in Breaking Bad. But essentially Laylo has him at gunpoint with the camera, so he has the point and shoot, and he's making Gus do a walk around the laboratory while filming it for Don Eladio, so he can basically humiliate him and get proof that the Chicken Man is a traitor. So we get to see like the whole opening hatch of the lab, which is from Breaking Bad, I think. Obviously, as a viewer of Breaking Bad, depending if you watched Breaking Bad before this or not, I mean, there's two different camps of people. Some people might be watching this first just for the chronological reason, but watching Breaking Bad, I mean, I knew that Gus wasn't going to die here, obviously. So the tension of the scene comes in a different way. It's more about what is going to happen, how is he going to get out of there. And I mean, I thought this previously in the first season. Me and a friend from work actually spoke about how he was going to lure him down there into this pit in the lab, because we knew about the gun and things that he stashed down there, and we figured it was either going to be Gus to take him out or it was going to be Mike. And I was leaning more towards Gus because he's been kind of a paranoid mess this season, just because he knows that Laylo is still alive and that his whole sort of plan could be uprooted. So I thought that it's got to be Gus, because Gus needs to claim his sort of confidence back, his swagger back, and take care of business himself. So I was good to see that happen. And the way in which it went, first of all, Gus's speech was really cool. He basically outlined his plan for what he had in mind for the Salamanca family, which was the old sangre de sangre. I can't remember if that's how you pronounce it, but it's basically blood for blood. He pretty much outlines to Laylo Salamanca what he's going to do with the family. He's going to make sure that everyone else is dead before Hector, to get the ultimate revenge on Hector for killing his partner slash friend in Salud. Is it Salud, the episode? But we finally got to see Gus up to his sort of like cold and calculated speeches, which he's very well known for. I mean, the one about the infant daughter in Breaking Bad was pretty brutal enough. So seeing Gus being in charge for once, for the first time in a while, was really awesome. And I think honestly, in his own character, he wasn't sure he was going to make it out alive, which you can tell by his sort of panic when it happens. And this scene was very, very Silence of the Lambs. It was kind of a bait and switch itself, because I'm trying to remember, it might have just been my TV, but I'm pretty sure when Gus was firing off the gun. There was no audio for the bullets. So to me, it made it look like he was shooting the whole clip out to find a bullet in the gun. And there was none. And that's what I thought at first. And I was like, oh shit, what's he going to do now? But it was a bait and switch with the audio because he was firing the rounds. And when he turned the lights back on, Layla was there bleeding out on the floor. Now this was something I was not expecting to happen in the first episode of the second part. I thought this was going to be more towards the end of the show. I mean, it opens up a whole new ball game for where the show is going to go. Now we have, what, 5 episodes left? And the main antagonist is gone. So this is going to be interesting what happens next, honestly. And I mean, the new episode 9, is already out at this point, but I haven't seen it yet. And I'm probably not going to be able to see it for the next 24 hours. So, I mean, hopefully I'll be able to get the video up for that a lot sooner. Maybe within a couple of days of it coming out, but who knows? I don't watch the promos or anything for these episodes, so I basically watch it episode to episode. I don't see anything in between if I can help it. I want to talk about one scene as well in this where we have Mike and his men just walking through the compound, and the camera angles in this are just really creative. That's one thing this show has always been amazing for, and it's just this really low down shot just following them walk around the house, and I just thought it was a really cool shot, just something to point out. I think I'll probably point out some of the more creative shots in each of my reviews because they are some of the things that just set it apart from every other show on television. When Kim is captured by Mike and taken in to interrogate about what she's doing there and what her objective is, one thing in particular that I thought was really cool and really interesting was the fact that there was a young man who kind of looked like Gus Fring there, and obviously she's never met Gus, and she told him that she was there to kill him because of how he looked. And at first I was a bit confused about who this character was, but thinking about it, he is a body double for Gus, just to be used in a situation like this to kind of bait them out without being in any danger. And I thought that just proves just how much Gus is so far ahead of everyone in this chess game of decisions, and he's so like ahead of the game in thinking forward in that way that scene in particular just cements him as like such a really interesting and intelligent villain. Wrapping up the episode, we essentially have Mike doing what he does best when we first see him in Breaking Bad, being the cleanup guy. So with Laylo dead in the lab, we now have Howard's body being moved to the lab and then both being buried underground in the very lab that Walter White and Jesse cook meth in. And that's another nail in the coffin for poor Howard. This guy's ghost is going to be stuck under a meth lab next to a cartel psychopath. So just think about that. I was talking about it with a friend who said that this sort of changes their perspective of Breaking Bad. If you to watch some of the lab scenes again, you're just thinking that there's 2 corpses underneath the lab, and even mention of the fly being a possession of the fly by Laylo Salamanca, just flying around and just taking the piss out of Walter White, which would seem to be something that his personality trait would lead towards. And that is where we lead up to the car washing up on the beach. So Mike has made it look like Howard has essentially committed suicide and was a drug addict, which is just so wrong, and I don't think he's ever going to get the justice for being a good guy at any point for this now. We've seen Breaking Bad, unless it comes at the end of the show, maybe something to do with Kim. One of the things which I think will play a lot into the next few episodes with Kim and Jimmy is how this is going to affect them, because Mike gives them the lowdown. He essentially says to them, Howard came around to the house and then he left and we've not seen him since. How about everything is covered up, all the DNA evidence and things, and you can just see in Kim's face that like this is not what she signed up for and she's not going to be able to cope well with this. Mike tells them both that they need to be in the places they're supposed to be, so they both have to go into work the next day and pretend like nothing has happened, and there's no way in hell that there's going to be a day where they don't reflect on this in some way, especially with Kim. She's never been involved with anything as dark as this, so I definitely think this is going to lead her down a path of depression or suicide or addiction. I don't know what's going to happen with her character, but it's going to be she's not going to be the same after what's happened. I feel like Jimmy's the same, but he's been through a lot, he's seen a lot, so he's just going to have to push this under the carpet and lock it out of his mind, and that's pretty much where his character's going. He's just got to kind of be a part of all these decisions and just turn himself off, and I feel like this is where his character's going to start getting more like Saul. Essentially, he's going to have to just turn off because there's no going back now. So these are my initial thoughts on Point and Shoot. It has been a few days since I saw it. I have no notes. I'm going off the top of my head. It's 30 degrees in the UK, which is not nice. So I hope you do appreciate me just putting this together real quick for you guys. Hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Obviously, don't spoil anything that happens in episode 9, but I will be watching that very soon, and next time I'll have more comprehensive review. I think I'll have some screenshots on the side to talk about the things I'm actually talking about, so you guys know what I'm talking about in reference. And I'll see you guys for the review of episode 9.